Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of stars tonight that are going to be helping me out here. I've got Sandor that you can't see yet, but you will in a minute, and he's my greyhound mix that I brought back from Spain a few years ago, and I've got Bjorn, my handsome pit bull, and they're going to help me out by demonstrating some things tonight. So I wanted to kind of finish up on what we were talking about last night, which is about the place board, which I know for a lot of you guys that have, some of you that have been my students or my clients are probably sick of hearing about place board exercises, but so help me, it is the #1 foundational principle that you need to know if you want to have a dog that is compliant and well-mannered in your home. And there's so many different applications for this one exercise. And so I wanted to kind of continue with that. I got a response today from somebody that watched the video that I did last night on place board exercise, who was talking about how his dog followed him out throughout the house and whether that was a good idea or not. So a lot of times people mistakenly think that when a dog follows you everywhere, that it's because the dog obviously sees you as leader, because he wants to follow you and be with you all the time and can't live without you and so on and so forth. But actually, it's an unhealthy thing for your dog to follow you all the time, and it's actually the beginning of what could turn out to be a very bad case of separation anxiety. So one of the things that I look for with my own dogs is that I travel quite a bit. I travel internationally. I travel back and forth to Los Angeles at least a couple of times a month. So I'm a pretty frequent traveler. And what I want my dogs to know is that I'm always going to come back, and that the rules are the same when I'm gone, and that I'm always in charge of the home. I want to represent calm and control and leadership for my dogs, because that's what they crave more than anything else. Okay, they're pack animals, and what they crave is somebody that they can follow, that they can trust implicitly, no matter what. So one of the things that I love is when I go out of town and I come back, when my dogs hear my car pull up, it'll be stone silent in my home. So my housekeeper, who also takes care of my dogs, lives on the property, and when I'm gone, she takes care of everybody. She tells me that when the UPS driver comes up, when one of my volunteers comes up, anybody else that comes up during the week when I'm gone, the dogs bark and basically alert her that somebody's there. But when my car drives up, there's stone silence, which is a good sign. So one of the things that you want to watch out for is a dog that follows you around incessantly, especially a dog that goes into your intimate spaces, follows you into the bathroom, won't leave you alone. You're trying to get dressed, or you're trying to, if you're sitting and having a meal and he's under the table, you're sitting and watching TV or just relaxing and he's leaning on your leg, or he's got his head on your leg. One of the things that we tend to do is we have a knee-jerk reaction to reward that behavior, and our hands will go down and we'll just instinctively pet that behavior. Well, try to think of it this way. What if I were to come up to you and bump into you and shove you with my hand and actually touch you, which is what a dog is doing when he does that kind of behavior, leaning on you, putting his head on you, and say, hey, why don't you make me a sandwich? I mean, it's a silly, stupid analogy, but nonetheless, what if I did that to somebody, to you or to somebody else, and said, why don't you make me a sandwich? And you promptly got up and went and got me a sandwich. That's pretty much the equivalent of what the dog is doing to you, because in their natural world, subordinate member of a pack would never go up to the leader of the pack and put physical pressure on him and ask him for something and then expect to have it. So remember that dogs, they don't communicate the same way we do. They don't speak an actual language. Their communication is everything to do with body, with their body language and how they move and how they approach one another and the kind of pressure that they use with one another and the kind of eye contact that they make. They don't use words. I'm explaining everything to you right now in English because that's the way I communicate with you. But dogs don't do the same thing. So you have to understand when you're doing that, you're actually reinforcing a behavior that you probably don't want, although most of the time people don't recognize it until it's too late. And then they call and go, all of a sudden, my dog was doing great until he turned 1.5 years old. Now all of a sudden he's being extremely reactive when we go into public and a person comes up to try to greet me on the street, or he's very reactive when we go to the dog park. Bad idea anyway. That's my opinion. You go to the dog park and another dog approaches me, and then he goes after that dog. Or maybe you have 2 dogs at home. You're sitting on the Bjorn's he's scratching his back on the ground. That's what you're hearing in the background. He always has to show off, and he's always trying to get attention. So anyway, what happens is that when another dog approaches you, maybe even might even have 2 dogs at home, One dog approaches you when you're sitting on the sofa for affection. You give that dog affection. Then another dog approaches, and suddenly the one that's on the sofa with you goes after the other dog, and people are so shocked. So this is what I refer to when I'm talking about the nuances, because little things like that you allow, you're not realizing at the time that what the dogs are doing to you is actually claiming you. They're claiming you as though you were a resource. All right? You're the provider of all their food, after all. You're the one that takes them on the walks. You're the one that gives them everything. So I hate to break this to you, but basically you're a resource. Okay? I recently talked to some clients that had a dog that got a sandwich off the counter when he shouldn't have. Obviously, dogs don't eat sandwiches usually, but he got a sandwich off the counter and had a lot of trouble getting the sandwich from the dog. He was growling and showing his teeth and so on and so forth. And another time, I think it was a meaty kind of a bone that he found, and they couldn't get that away from him. So that's a resource. So that's a dog that's considered to be resource guarding. The exact same thing is happening when that person is standing there and the dog actually comes in and backs up to him. Let's say they're on a walk, so here's you and here's your dog. Would somebody come and help me, please? Sandor, would you be my dog? Can you guys see my dog, Sandor? So let's say you're on a walk through your neighborhood, and you've got your dog with you, and your dog sort of goes ahead of you. Come on, Sandor. He's good at not doing that, that's the way he was trained. So he goes ahead of you, and suddenly he's leaning against you, right? And he's leaning against you. Maybe he even sits on your foot, and the person comes up to hug you, or their dog comes forward to smell, and suddenly this guy attacks the other person's dog. Well, that's because, as far as the dog was concerned, I was the resource. I was the one that he was guarding. And no different than if I were a sandwich or a meaty bone. I know that sounds weird, but seriously, that's resource guarding. So how does that apply to, this is a roundabout way of talking about the importance of place work. Because when you teach a dog not to do something, you tell a dog not to do something, you always want to tell him what to do instead. That's the part that we leave out so many times, is we say, please don't do this, but we don't say what to do instead. So the place board, when you get that activity down, it doesn't have to be a board, it can be a bed, it can be I have Costco pillows. I love Costco pillows because they're cheap. They get dirty, you throw them away, get another Costco pillow. But you can get a bed, you can get a blanket, you can get a towel, whatever it is that your dog likes to sleep on, even the floor, a space on the floor, that's your particular dog's place. It's about a state of mind. It's not about an actual piece of something, okay? This is a professional place board. So it's made up of PVC pipe, nylon is the surface part, and there's rubber legs. So that's a physical place. But what I want the dog to see it as is a state of mind. So when my dogs go there, they understand that they need to go there, relax there, stay there. The one word place implies all that. It implies go there, lay down there, relax there, chill out there, no one can hurt you there. This is your perfect space in the world right here. And that's with one word. You don't have to go place, sit, stay. You don't have to do any of that if you teach the dog right and you condition him for that. So that being said, let's say somebody comes into your home and your dog tends to be reactive with newcomers into the home. So what you want to get through to your dog is not that somebody coming into your home is an intruder, rather they are an invited guest, because after all, you're the head of your household, right? You own the house. The dog just gets to live there. So when somebody comes over, you can ask your dog to go to his place if the dog is reactive, and especially if he's bitten people. And I know people that have had dogs that actually have their beds at the front door. Not a good idea. So the dog's at the front door at Command Central, waiting for some intruder to come in, and God forbid what's going to happen from there. But what you do is you want to get the bed or the place away from the door where the dog can see what's going on. You invite your guest in, but first you ask your dog to go to the place, right? So then the guest can come in, you give them a hug, you shake their hand, whatever it is you do, and that way the dog understands that he's to stay there, because after all, you're in charge. But what you've done is you haven't just said, please don't bark at the person coming in the door, please don't bite the person coming into the door, please don't make it difficult for me to hold you by the collar and try to open the door and get my body into the door so that my guest can come in. Please don't do all that. Instead, do this. Simple. So if you get your dog really acclimated to this exercise, to where they're really solid with it without distractions, then you can apply this in a multitude of ways. And because you know I love this exercise, I will be telling you all the different ways to do it. But this is one way that you can definitely do it. You can ask your dog to go someplace and stay there. instead of just saying don't do this. So in other words, you're giving them direction. You're not just saying don't do it. You're saying do this instead. Okay? You guys sick of this yet? I know I talk about it a lot, but really it's changed so much. So many things about the way when I first started training. I had been in, of course, I've been in rescue for years and years. So I had a ridiculous amount of dogs that lived in my home, and I had a ridiculous amount of problems because I didn't know anything about dog behavior for a long, long time. And once I learned how to give my dogs some direction, which is what they were craving all along, it changed everything. So, Bjorn, I know you guys all want to see Bjorn. Come here, buddy. So they didn't really do much tonight, but Sander, come here. Sander, please. They do like to go to their place. So you know when a dog goes to his place on his own and relaxes, here's Mr. Handsome over here, then you know that they've been trained properly to go to the place. Never, ever, ever, ever punish a dog for leaving the place. If he gets off the place, which is probably what they're going to do because I wasn't very serious about it, if they get off the place, just gently guide them back to the place. You want them to know that that always represents a place where they can go and be safe. Just like by my side, in my crate, on my place. Okay? All right. Maybe I'll come up with something different tomorrow. I'm drilling this concept in your head because it's so, so important. But we'll move on to some other topics, but this is always your go-to thing. Get that down, okay? See you guys. Bye.